What if I told you there's a man in a quiet town who hasn't slept on the same night? Every single year, for almost 4 decades. He never talks about it. He never explains it. He just sits by the window, staring into the dark, as if he's waiting for someone who will never come home. And the only one who truly knows his secret isn't a friend, isn't a doctor, isn't even family. It's his dog, a loyal German shepherd who has watched his heart break in silence. But this year, something is different. This year, the past doesn't just hurt. It calls him to finish what he never did. And when he finally whispers the truth out loud, you'll understand why some battles don't end when the war does. If this story touches you, please stay with us till the end. Hit subscribe to support more videos like this, and thank you, truly, for being here. White Pine, Montana, huddles in a shallow valley cupped by dark timber, and early winter comes on like a steady, unblinking stare. The wind combs the lodgepoles until they whisper in a dry rasp. The dirt road freezes into rutted iron, and a scurf of hoarfrost turns every fence rail pearl white under a hard moon. Porch lights blink out one by one across the sleepy edge of town, leaving only the grain elevator's sodium lamp to buzz like a tired wasp. Walter's clapboard house sits at the last bend before the county road gives up to pasture, its tin roof clattering when a gust shoulders through, its chimney stitching a thin seam of heat into the blue-black cold. Inside, the living room smells faintly of cedar, old coffee, and a ribbon of gun oil that has seeped into the grain of a glass front cabinet. The furniture is clean but scuffed, the kind of durable, unremarkable pieces a man buys once and keeps because they do their work. A baseboard heater ticks in a small, patient rhythm. The television is off. The remote lies exactly parallel to the chair arm, as if set down by a quartermaster. In the low amber light of a single lamp, dust motes hang and drift like a slow snowfall that never reaches the ground. Walter sits by the window, turned 3/4 toward the night, his reflection faint and double in the glass. He is in his late 60s, long in the limbs and lean across the shoulders, in a way that suggests a man once asked to carry more than his share. Time has etched him cleanly, twin vertical lines between the brows that never quite relax, a pale notch of an old scar tucked under his left cheekbone, sun-faded freckles washed thin across a nose that has been broken and set competent rather than pretty. Close-cropped hair runs steel gray to white at the temples. A silver stubble shadows his jaw by evening, even when he shaved at noon. His hands are square and rope-veined, the right index finger carrying a small callus where a trigger rested many lives ago. He wears a flannel shirt tucked into faded jeans and wool socks that whisper on the floorboards when he shifts, though he has sat almost perfectly still for an hour with the contained patience of someone trained to stand watch. On the rug where the lamplight pools, Rex keeps his post. He is a 5-year-old German shepherd tuned like a good instrument, a dense double coat that runs sable saddle over a black back, guard hairs catching the light like lacquer, a level top line and straight, strong pasterns, a head carried with calm purpose, tall, keen ears swiveling to every tiny report of the house. The heaters tick, a moth's dumb insistence at the window, the glass settling in the frame. His amber-brown eyes return again and again to Walter's face. He has the athlete's easy grace when he moves, and the sentry's stillness when he doesn't. Obedient without being dull, curious without being rash, he is the kind of dog who reads a room the way other creatures read weather, tracking pulse and posture and breath until a pattern emerges. Rex knows this pattern. Every year, on this exact date, the house performs a ritual made of silence. Dinner happens early and gets cleaned away with the same neatness as always. Plate rinsed, pan dried, towel folded on its seam. But afterward, there is no television, no radio, no music. Walter checks the lock on the back door twice, then once more by habit, not fear. He pours coffee too late and lets it go cold on the sill. He sits. He looks out at nothing in particular for a very long time. If a neighbor were to pass on the lane, and few do so late, they would see only the square of lamplight and the silhouette of a man who could be anyone, and they would drive on, thinking about the weather. The room holds clues that don't speak unless you already know their language. A narrow run of field manuals and worn paperback thrillers leans on a shelf, their spines broken by use. In a bowl by the window, coins, a brass key with no tag, a pocket knife honed thin as honesty. On the end table, turned slightly away from the glass to avoid glare from the streetlight, sits a black and white photograph in a simple wooden frame. Rex does not understand photographs, but he understands what happens to Walter's eyes when they settle on that square of frozen time. The gaze tightens, the jaw sets, the breath shortens by a fraction you could measure if you were holding a stethoscope to his ribs. Tonight, when that look gathers again, Rex rises on his elbows and makes a soft question in his throat. Not a whine, not a bark, just a carved-out syllable that means, "I am here." Walter answers with a palm laid flat on Rex's head, fingers working gently through the warm ruff between the ears. Up close, his kindness is plain. He is not gregarious, not a storyteller at the feed store. But he fixes porch rails for widows without being asked, brings a bag of salt to an old neighbor's steps after a storm, and keeps the business of his pain tidy so it won't leak on anyone else. He wears patience like an old field jacket, not flashy, but it has seen him through. If there is anger in him, it is fossilized, condensed to a single dense seam that does not fracture easily. What moves in him tonight is not anger. It is the undertow of a memory that returns with the season, strong enough to pull, not strong enough to drown a man who knows the shape of currents. The heater clicks off, and the house goes briefly, wholly quiet. Somewhere outside, a coyote trills. The sound seems close in the cold, as if the air itself ferries voices farther. Walter's gaze slides from the window to the photograph and back, and the pattern completes itself. A small lift of the chin, a narrowing of the eyes, and then a long, patient exhale. Rex eases to his feet and pads to the window to look at what Walter looks at. The lane, the fence, the hard glitter of frost, but there is nothing there to justify staying awake except whatever Walter carries. The dog returns and sits close enough that their shoulders almost touch, a deliberate placement that says if something comes, it will meet both of us first. On the wall beyond the kitchen doorway hangs a calendar printed by the seed cooperative in town. Most days are blank or carry ordinary pencil marks, trash pickup, a delivery, a dentist check. But this date wears a small red circle, drawn firm and unshaky. No note, no name. Not a birthday, not the day the county fair opens, not a meeting. Just a ring of attention that says remember. The clock clucks. The coffee cools. Walter's fingers tap once against the chair arm. A sound so slight it would vanish if you blinked. Rex watches the hand, then the face, then the hand again. When Walter finally speaks, his voice is quiet and unfrayed. "Easy, boy," he says, a phrase that is less instruction than reassurance, and possibly meant as much for himself as for the shepherd. He reaches for the cup, tastes the cold bitterness without surprise, sets it back exactly where it was. Out beyond the glass, the moon rides higher, turning the fields into a map of snowless silver and shadow. In another house on another street, someone laughs. It arrives here disembodied and thin, and it startles Walter not at all. He has heard laughter far too close to ruin to be bothered by the harmless kind. Rex shifts his weight so that the warmth of him presses against the man's wool sock. His ears go forward, back, forward again as the wind tests the porch. He is a creature made for work, and the work tonight is not teeth or speed, but presence. To stay when staying is all that's asked. To listen when listening is the only thing that helps. He does these things without fuss. He is, after all, a shepherd. Walter glances once more at the frame and then out into the indifference of the winter dark. The line between inside and out is a single pane of glass, and the discipline of an old man who refuses to let his sorrow command him. He keeps his watch because that is what you do when the calendar comes to collect. He does not pray. He does not curse. He simply stays. And beside him, Rex stays too. Still as an oath, warm as a promise. Both of them holding their post at the edge of town where the night is a long road with no traffic. I used to think he had insomnia because of his old age, but no one sits looking at the same photo for years. Just because they can't sleep, morning comes late in White Pine, as if the sun has to negotiate its way past the mountains before agreeing to rise. A thin fog clings to the field behind the house, turning the grass brittle and pale. The kitchen smells of reheated coffee and the faint trace of last night's wood smoke, still hanging in the air like something unfinished. Walter sits at the table, shoulders rounded, elbows braced on the scarred oak surface. In front of him lies the same black and white photograph that returns every year like a tide. 5 young soldiers in desert fatigues, all grinning, all alive, all unaware of the countdown running beneath their boots. Walter, framed in the center, is 25 there, broader in the face, sunburned, eyes bright with a confidence that has since been sanded down to bone. Rex pads across the floor, claws clicking softly, his coat still damp from the morning patrol outside. He noses Walter's knee first, a greeting, an assessment, then sits, tail curled around his hip, eyes fixed on the photo as if he could decode humans by staring hard enough. The German shepherd tilts his head, ears erect, waiting for a command that doesn't come. Instead, Walter just keeps staring, thumb rubbing the edge of the picture until the paper begins to fray. The silence breaks with the crunch of tires on frozen gravel. A truck door slams. A moment later, a woman's voice calls out a short, practical greeting before she knocks twice and lets herself in without waiting. That is something only one person in town does. Sarah Atwood steps inside, brushing off the cold, bringing with her the sharp scent of winter air and engine grease. She is in her early 40s, tall and lean in a way that suggests she has been lifting hay bales and tire chains since before she cared about being pretty. Her dark blonde hair is tied back, streaked lighter from sun and age. Her skin is wind-toughened, freckled, and her eyes, gray, steady, quick to scan a room, belong to someone who survived more than one kind of winter. She owns the only auto shop within 30 miles, and if a person in White Pine needs a tow, a tire patch, or blunt honesty, Sarah is who they call. She notices the photo on the table immediately, but she doesn't comment. Her gaze flicks to Rex instead, and she bends to scratch behind his ear. "Morning, soldier," she says, the nickname she's given the dog since he chased off a coyote near her shop last spring. Rex accepts the affection, but only briefly. His attention belongs to Walter. Sarah straightens, crosses her arms. Engine belt came in early. Figured I'd drop it off before the snow hits again. Her voice is calm, almost neutral, but there is a softness beneath it that she never admits to. Walter gives a faint nod, thanks her without looking up. She waits a moment, trying to decide whether today is a day to ask questions. It isn't. She knows the date, too. Everyone who's lived near Walter long enough does. She takes the hint, sets the box of parts on the counter. But her eyes land on the calendar pinned to the wall and the red circle around November 12th. You ever think about putting that photo in a frame? She asks, a half joke, half invitation. Walter finally looks up, tired eyes meeting hers. It was framed once, he says. Didn't help. Whatever she meant to say after that, she lets die in her throat. She only nods, taps the table once, and heads to the door. Call if you need a hand. I'll be at the shop till 6. The door closes behind her, leaving the house quieter than before, as if the brief interruption only reminded it how still it truly is. Walter exhales, long and slow, then reaches for the photo again. Rex watches as he flips it over. On the back is handwriting, faded pencil but still legible. Last patrol before we're home. Save me a beer, Walt. Tyler, the name hangs in the air like a match not yet struck. Walter closes his eyes, jaw tightening. Rex leans forward and rests his chin on Walter's thigh. The closest thing a dog has to saying I remember too, even if I don't know why. A forklift beeps somewhere down by the grain yard, distant enough to feel like memory. The fog outside has started to thin, revealing a sky as pale as cold steel. Walter presses the photo flat on the table, smoothing it like he's afraid it might crumble. He is not thinking about breakfast. He is thinking about the promise written on the back of that picture, and how only one man ever came home to keep it. Rex shifts, sensing the storm inside the man even if the world outside stays quiet. He noses the photo once, gently, as if to say, that's enough for now. Walter almost smiles, but grief is a slow, stubborn guest that does not leave just because morning has arrived. He lifts the picture, stands, and walks toward the small cabinet beside the bookshelf. Inside are things Rex has never touched, but knows by scent. Metal, canvas, paper that smells of age and sweat and desert wind. Walter pauses there, neither putting the photo away nor holding it close, only suspended, caught between past and present the way a man can be caught between breath and heartbeat. Rex settles by his feet, spine straight, gaze upward. He does not understand the war, the promise, the loss, but he understands that something invisible presses Walter down more heavily than age ever could. I don't know who the men in the picture are, Rex thinks, the way only a narrator dog can think. But I know they aren't here. And the ones who disappear in war, they rarely leave peacefully. The sky over northern Montana turns the color of cold steel by late afternoon, a flat gray sheet that swallows the sun long before it reaches the horizon. The wind has quieted, but the air feels heavier, as if the world is holding its breath. Inside the house, the lamps are already on, though it is barely past 4. Walter sits at the edge of the kitchen table with a glass of bourbon half melted with ice, the amber liquid catching the light like a polished coin. He is still wearing the same flannel shirt from morning, sleeves rolled up to the elbows, revealing sinewy forearms marked with pale scars, unremarkable at a glance, unless you knew what shrapnel looked like after 40 years. Rex lies near the wood stove, paws tucked under his chest, head lifted just enough to watch Walter. The German Shepherd is quiet in a way that is not sleep but study, reading every shift of weight, every silent exhale. He has learned that people speak in more than words, in the way they hold a glass, or avoid a calendar, or stare through a wall as if something is written there. The calendar hangs by a thumbtack beside the fridge, ordinary paper, month pages curling at the corners. November is almost over, yet one date alone is marked. 12 circled in red ink. No note, no reminder, no explanation. Just the kind of circle a man draws not to remember something, but because he can't forget it. Walter takes a slow drink, his hand trembling enough that the ice clinks against the glass. He tries the radio, dialing past country music, weather updates, a call-in show. A reporter's voice breaks in. Veterans gathering in D.C. today to honor. Walter switches it off instantly. The silence that follows is not peaceful. It is the kind that arrives after a door slams in a hallway and no one goes to open it again. Rex stands, stretches, walks to him, and rests his head on the man's knee. Walter's hand finds the space between the dog's ears automatically, but the touch is absent-minded, like muscle memory with no emotion attached. His gaze drifts to the window, where the world is turning dark in slow layers. The sound of tires on gravel breaks the quiet. Not hurried, just steady. A moment later, another knock. This time it is Cal Jenkins, the town's mail carrier, who does not wait for permission before cracking the door open. Cal is in his early 50s, short and barrel-chested, bundled in a fleece postal jacket that strains at the shoulders. His beard is coarse, salt and pepper, trimmed close enough to show a jaw that looks carved out of stubbornness. He is a man who laughs loudly, works hard, and remembers every birthday in town, except Walter's, because Walter never lets him celebrate it. Cal carries a small padded envelope and a folded newspaper. "Didn't mean to bother you, Walt," he says, voice gravelly but not unkind. "Just figured you'd want this today. Came in from D.C. Mail Stamps Military." He places the envelope on the table, then glances at the bourbon, then at Walter's eyes, then at the calendar. That is all the detective work he needs. He adds, softer, "Didn't know him, but I know you did." Walter gives a faint nod, but no words. Cal doesn't push. People in a small town learn which doors stay closed for a reason. He bends to pat Rex, who receives the greeting politely but without wagging. Even the dog feels the change in the air today. "Take care of him," Cal murmurs, as if the shepherd were the one in charge. Then he leaves, shutting the door with the gentleness of someone who understands that noise is not always welcome. Walter stares at the envelope. His hand hovers above it, then withdraws. He drinks again instead. Only after a full minute does he speak, not to Cal, not to the room, but in a low rasp meant for a friend who isn't here. "He always wanted to send postcards," Walter mutters. "Said when we made it home, he'd write one from every state we crossed." "Proof we survived all the way," he said. Rex lifts his head, ears pricking at the tone. Walter looks down at him, and his gaze flickers with something that might be apology. He opens the envelope at last. Inside is a small, creased photo, another one of the same 5 soldiers, but this time taken on base, helmets off, sweat slick, desert behind them, all eyes squinting against the sun. Tucked behind it is a short letter, the handwriting shaky but familiar enough to hollow him out. It isn't from Tyler. It's from Tyler's sister, written after finding a box of her brother's things. She hopes the photo belongs with someone who was there. She doesn't say survivor. She doesn't say last one standing. She just signs her name, Emily Hayes. Walter presses the paper flat with both hands as if holding it still will stop time from pouring through it. His lips move, but no sound escapes. Rex moves closer, the warmth of his body grounding the space between grief and memory. The clock ticks. The house breathes. Outside, the wind finally stirs again, brushing against the walls like a reminder that nothing stays still, not even pain. And Rex, watching the man who never speaks of the date circled in red, knows one thing with absolute certainty. If sorrow had a sound, it would be the silence that follows a radio turned off mid-sentence. Night settles over the house without wind, the kind of stillness that makes every sound sharper than it should be. The temperature has dropped, and the cold presses against the windows like a quiet, patient visitor. Walter has fallen asleep in his chair, not deeply, but in the posture of a man who no longer expects rest to bring relief. His head tilts forward, chin against his chest, one hand still resting on the armrest, as if holding an invisible weight. Rex lifts his head from the rug the moment Walter's breathing evens out. The German Shepherd rises, body stretching in a slow ripple of muscle and fur, nose twitching at a scent that does not belong to the present moment. Dust, aged paper, metal, and dry cloth. He knows the smell. It lives in one place only. He pads toward the bedroom with silent steps, nudging open the half-closed door. The room is spare. The frame bed, the dresser, a single lamp, and under the bed, a sliver of wood visible only to a creature who spends time close to the floor. Rex lowers himself, stretches a paw beneath the frame, and hooks something. A dull scrape of wood across floorboards fills the room as he drags it out. The box is small, cedar, darkened by time. The brass latch is tarnished. Rex noses it once, twice. The lid shifts open. Inside rests the life Walter no longer speaks aloud. The first item is a U.S. military ID card, laminated edges yellowed, photo of Walter at 23, eyes sharp, jaw hard, hair darker and longer than now. Next, a strip of cloth, off-white, once part of a field dressing, stiff with dried blood that has browned into a kind of rust. Rex sniffs it, recoils at the metallic sting that even years can't erase. Then the third object, a photograph, different from the ones Rex has seen before. This one shows Walter with only one other man, a young soldier with a wide grin, freckles across his nose, hair clipped high and tight. On the back, written in pencil, are the words, "For the day we both make it home, Tyler." The graphite is smudged, but still readable, still alive. Rex settles onto his paws, ears forward, gaze fixed on the photo. He doesn't know what home means to humans, but he knows this picture smells of unfinished things. Behind him, the floor creaks. Walter is standing in the doorway, not startled, not angry, not even surprised, just looking. His face is lit only by the low hallway lamp, shadow carving deeper into the lines across his brow. For a long moment, he says nothing. Then he walks forward, slow, like approaching a grave. He kneels, one hand resting on the edge of the box. He picks up the bloodied cloth first, fingers tracing the stiff weave as if expecting it to pulse back to life. Then the photo. He holds it quietly, thumb pressed over the pencil words, pressing as though he could push the sentence into his own skin. When he finally speaks, his voice is rough, cracking against the quiet. "I'm sorry, kid." Not spoken to Rex or to himself or even to the room, but to someone who has been gone longer than anyone here wants to measure. He lowers his head, eyes closing, and the weight of years presses into his shoulders. Rex doesn't move. He stays exactly where he is, the way a sentry does when the man he guards is not under attack by the world, but by memory. Outside, a single owl calls, one low sound into the cold night. Inside, Walter breathes once, sharply. He closes the box, but not all the way. Not this year. And Rex, watching him, understands something he has no words for. That guilt can live longer than the people it belongs to. If I don't know what war is, he thinks, I know the sound a heart makes when it's trying to speak to someone who can't answer anymore. The wind has picked up by nightfall, sweeping across the empty fields behind the house and rattling the loose tin on the porch roof. The sky is a deep charcoal, no stars visible, just a wash of cloud moving slow and heavy like a curtain being drawn. Walter steps outside with his jacket pulled close, collar turned up against the cold. The screen door creaks behind him, then shuts with a thud softened by age. Rex follows, staying close enough that their shadows overlap in the porch light. Walter lowers himself onto the top step, joints stiff, breath fogging. Rex settles beside him without being told, the German shepherd's thick coat shifting in the wind, ears positioned forward in a calm alertness. Walter rests a hand on the dog's head, an old, familiar gesture, but tonight it lingers a little longer, like the touch is an anchor instead of habit. If I had taken the left side that day, Walter says quietly, voice almost swallowed by the wind, he'd be the one sitting here, not me. There is no audience for this kind of confession. No priest, no friend, no brother in arms still alive to nod in understanding. The only witness is a 5-year-old shepherd with steady amber eyes and a silence that never judges. Rex leans in, just slightly, pressing his weight against Walter's leg. Not an answer, not sympathy, just presence. A truck passes somewhere far off on the county road, sound fading before it ever feels close. Walter keeps staring into the dark, but something has shifted in him. Not lighter, just less locked. Inside, the house is lit, the open box still on the floor, the photo of Tyler still resting on top. The past is no longer hidden under the bed. It is sitting out, waiting. He draws a slow breath, one hand tightening slightly, as if holding something invisible. Maybe it's time to finish what I never did. The words come quieter than the wind, but firmer than any he has spoken in days. Not a vow, not a plan, just the first shape of one. Rex tilts his head, studying the man the way an animal reads weather. He doesn't know what finish means. He doesn't know what didn't get done. But he knows a decision when he hears one, because decisions change scent, posture, heartbeat. And Walter's heartbeat, though steady, has changed rhythm. The porch light flickers as the wind hits the wiring again. Walter doesn't move. Not yet. His thoughts are somewhere else. Desert heat, exhaust dust, 5 men in a photo who had no idea which one would outlive the picture. The guilt is not gone, but it has turned, tilted from weight to direction. Rex stands, just enough to reposition himself closer. He presses his shoulder against Walter's side, head brushing the old man's arm as if to answer the words that weren't meant to be answered. I'm here. You're not alone. Walter finally looks down at him and gives a small, tired half-smile. Yeah, he mutters. Guess it's you and me, kid. The wind shifts again, carrying the smell of distant rain. The night is colder, but Walter does not seem to notice. He stands, patting Rex once on the side, then walks back inside. Not slowly, not dragged down like before, but with the kind of quiet resolve that has direction. Rex follows, tail low but steady, padding across the floor. The box remains open. The photo remains face up, but for the first time in years, Walter does not look at it with the helplessness of a man staring backward. He looks at it as if it's pointing somewhere forward. And Rex, watching him, understands in the only way a dog can. The world inside this house has shifted, even if the world outside hasn't. I can't bring back what he lost, Rex thinks, but maybe I can walk beside him in what's left. Sometimes, the hardest battles are the ones no one else can see. The wounds that don't bleed are the ones that take the longest to heal. But even when we think we're walking through the dark alone, God still sends someone to sit beside us. Sometimes it's a friend, sometimes it's a stranger, and sometimes it's a loyal dog who never asks for answers, only for the chance to stay. Maybe the real miracle isn't that the past can be changed, but that the heart can still find a way forward, even after it's been broken. So if you're watching this right now, I hope you remember this. No matter what you've lost, no matter what you regret, you are not forgotten. God has not abandoned you. He is still writing your story, even in the chapters that feel silent. May the Lord bless every person who is watching this video. Give peace to the restless, comfort to the lonely, and strength to those still carrying things they never talk about. And may we never take for granted the quiet angels He places in our lives, even the ones with 4 legs and fur. If this story touched your heart, please share it with someone who needs hope today. Leave a comment below and tell us, who has been your Rex in life? The one who stayed when others left. And if you want more stories like this, stories of faith, healing, and the quiet ways God still moves, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell. Your support helps this little channel reach more people who need a reminder that they're not alone. May God bless you, protect you, and walk beside you today, tomorrow, and always. And if you're watching this right now, this prayer is for you.